Scott, we started, as you can see, in our, hey, we got one attendee, more coming. Yadin, do you want to introduce Jim?
What?
Do you want to introduce Jim here in a moment? I mean, Jim's not going to be here because it's his birthday and he's celebrating his birthday at home, but
You just said it. Said it like that. He's not there
that was the
because-
introduction.
Because
Yeah.
birthday.
Oh.
Eva,
I
yay.
think it was 9:30.
Hey Tom, I just wanted to get straight with you. You're gonna introduce this video, then I'll roll it.
Yes, sir. And then Yadin and I will just live do some conclusions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Scott.
That's how it works. That's so fun.
With us to the end, Eva and Mario.
Yeah.
So Scott, my practice is if we're going to get towards double figures, I'll give it at least a moment to do that. But we might not because of the time of day. That's okay.
Copy that.
After the fact, just for now. Please capture. What were the worst parts? The heavy snaps. Oh, terrible.
A little bit of movement here. Welcome, Alan. We're looking forward to hearing from you tomorrow. We're all aware this is the last event of the day and another big day tomorrow. Tell you what, we're not getting too much movement time of day around the world. So a little bit of movement here, but I think not too much to be missed. So Scott, let's roll it.
Clinical engineering, credentialing. Credentialing for clinical engineering can be defined as setting and measuring against an essential and appropriate set of healthcare
Maybe we can up
technology,
the volume if possible.
management competencies to identify comparable professional experience for decision makers. There are different views on clinical credentialing. Some people view credentialing as having an additional quality control to that provided by academic training as a complement to a desired professional profile. Other people think that credentialing represents a way to question the preparation of graduates, which can even be offensive. In other words, the degree is not adequate. That is why it is necessary to clarify the credentialing implications, advantages, and limitations, and how it can be developed to meet its objectives and expectations. Let's talk about the history of clinical engineering certification. Clinical engineering certification was started in the US in 1973 by AME and the American Board of Clinical Engineering in 1975. They merged in 1985. Now this is the HTCC. In 1979, an IFMBE working group started working on agreement on mutual recognition for clinical engineers, which was never approved by the membership. In 1985, the CED was created by FMBE and continued to work on certification until 1990. In 2013, the CED established a clinical engineering certification committee that was developed the proposal for CED to recognize clinical engineering programs. Fabiola Martinez Lacona and Lee Ben were co-chairs. Various countries have established CE certification programs based on different models. Healthcare Technology Certification Commission provides CE certification for USA and Canada based on degrees, experience, written exam, and oral exam. In Europe, there are programs supported by the government to certify or recognize clinical engineers with various requirements, including degrees, some at the MS level, exams, and special courses. Programs exist or have existed at least in the Czech Republic, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Poland, and the United Kingdom. South Africa has a registration program for clinical engineers, technologists, and technicians. Registration program should be considered very similar to certification program. The People's Republic of China has a certification program similar to the USA with a degree requirement, experience, written and oral exams in English. Japan has the largest certification program of any place. They certify clinical engineering technologists based on education plus a written exam. These people actually work in clinical areas operating equipment. There are about 25,000 people certified under this program in Japan. India has recently started a certificate program with using different areas like biomedical engineering, biomedical maintenance, biomedical manufacturing, biomedical quality assurance, biomedical project management. Taiwan had a similar program, except they were certifying clinical engineers working in a hospital, maintenance technicians, and then biomedical engineers that work in industry. The ICEHTMC CED and the Global Clinical Engineering Alliance have formed an international task group to develop a program to recognize an international credentialing scheme for clinical engineering practitioners. A core global group has been established for this work and has been blessed by the FMBE CED board and the GCEA founders group. There are key issues that are involved. One is the body of knowledge, the BOK, developed for clinical engineering practitioners. AMI's BOK and an international survey on BOK will be used for a basis of this. The BOK internationally should be inclusive by levels of clinical engineering practitioners. Next is a body of practice developed for clinical engineering practitioners with some variation based on country or region, since it is developed differently. Perhaps the BOP will be 70 to 80% internationally by levels of clinical engineering practitioners. The task group have an established, recognized international credentialing scheme for clinical engineering practitioners will support access and resources for training and competency assessment, support capacity building within the profession, increase the profile and credibility of the profession, increase the influence the profession can have on policymakers, increase the benefits clinical engineering brings to healthcare systems, and most importantly, to patients. It also will reduce the risk associated with healthcare technology, improve productivity in healthcare, enabling increased resources to be available to patients, support and facilitate the development and adoption of innovative technology with potential for further increased benefits and reduced risk for patients. We will support career pathing and global mobility opportunities. There are a couple of international standards. The ISO IEC 17024, which is a conformity assessment, general requirements for bodies operating certification of persons. This is what programs should try to meet in the various countries. The HTCC was about 75% of this when I was on their board. The main thing with the 17024, this international standard has been developed with the objective of achieving and promoting a globally accepted benchmark for organizations operating certification of persons. Certification of persons is one means of providing assurance that the certified person meets the requirements of the certification scheme. Confidence in the respective certification schemes for persons is achieved by means of globally accepted process of assessment and periodic reassessments of the competence of certified persons. In other words, it has to be a program that people are recertified periodically based on experience and continuing education. The other one is ISO IEC 1711, which is conformity assessment, general requirements for accreditation bodies, accrediting conformity assessment bodies. In other words, they're accrediting, looking at programs that do certification. This is what a program that approves programs should try to achieve. This international standard specifies general requirements for accreditation bodies, assessing and accrediting conformity assessment bodies, CABs, is also appropriate as a requirements document for the peer evaluation process for mutual recognition arrangements between accreditation bodies. For the purposes of the international standard, CABs are organizations providing the following conformity assessment services: testing, inspection, management system certification, and personnel certification, product certification, and in the context of this, international standard calibration. We look at the future of clinical engineering credentialing, and I think that one of the things that needs to come out is the development of programs in countries without programs. And this is one of the things that the combined CED and GCA thing will look at is how can this task group, or whatever comes out of this task group, help countries develop programs. Also, one of the things that people ask about is the development of a program for certification of individuals in countries that do not have programs. And again, this is something that needs to be looked at. Now, once these people are certified, then if a program is established in their country, then they should be rolled into to that program. And this is not an international certification. It's just a way to certify individuals in countries that do not have programs. But once they have programs, they would cease to have the certification from this program. Further down the line, I think we need to look at the accreditation of clinical engineering academic programs. There's really nothing like this anywhere in the world. And as we're trying to look at programs, and I think this needs to be looking at both the BOK and the BOP. Anyway, we need to be looking at clinical engineering credentialing, and this is what is currently, I think, being done. Thank you.
We have a few comments about this keynote. So why Yadin? Well, first of all, Dr. Jim Weir. Dr. Jim Weir, I think Facebook is wrong. Facebook said he was 84. No, he's 85, and it's his birthday today.
Yay!
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jimmy. Happy birthday to you.
Do the speech again, speech.
So he's raising a plate of cake in our honor, but he ain't here. But he empowered Yadin and I to give some comments, and we will very quickly.
People, in the UK, what does it mean it ain't here?
He is not here, y'all.
Okay.
So Dr. David, why did credentialing rise to the level of a keynote, things so near and dear to the heart of CED and GCEA that we made it a keynote? And before you answer that, I'll just remind you, what are the other ones? I'll remind all of our colleagues and the video and the recording and all that, that WHO is near and dear to our heart. And what medical device unit of WHO does through Adriana Velazquez, we fully support. We care about the Global Clinical Engineering Alliance and the future of clinical engineering, which is our closing keynote tomorrow night. We care about being relevant to healthcare around the world through our grand challenges. I'll remind you, in Rome, Dr. Elliott Sloan talked about grand challenge of telehealth. Wow, what a great grand challenge to talk about how we can help countries implement solutions around that, particularly as COVID hit a few months after that. This time, it's the grand challenges of what we've learned from COVID and some great things that Dr. Jitendra Sharma, who's had a huge impact on COVID-19 care in India and around the world, he's going to share some things tomorrow. I'll leave you curious about what they are. But credentialing rose, Yadin, because why?
So it's very simple. If you want to practice in a sector that all the decision makers and the stakeholders have some kind of credentialing showing their skills and expertise, identifying their expected body of knowledge, and therefore framing their body of practice, it looks a little bit strange why the clinical engineers claim that they are so important, but yet we don't have those mechanisms. We don't have the unified body of knowledge. We don't have a frame around the body of practice, and we don't have a program that recognizes and inform the public about skill and talent that one has. Essentially, today, anybody in countries that don't have the program can say that they are clinical engineers. Countries that have credentialing program, they have some control over competency, and therefore the public is better protected. But it's rising because we as human race believe that if there is knowledge about human body, it must be a physician. So you go to the expert. But if knowledge has increased among the population on this planet, we know today so much more than just 5 years ago about our human body. And when I say we, I mean the average person in the community. So therefore, their expectation is that those who serve their health and wellness will be up to the challenge and be competent by showing their ability to demonstrate knowledge and expertise in the field. It's rising because expectations are rising, and we are, if not keeping up with them, we will be distinct profession.
And I've heard us characterize, I agree with all you said. I've heard us characterize, we need at least to know what the floor is, the minimum requirements, but we're also going to talk about value add to those minimum requirements as well, based on education and experience.
Right. It's not one size fits all, but it is one threshold all need to cross.
And Jim talked about CEP, clinical engineering practitioners. We recognize that WHO, where do we get our definitions? What's our reference point for our profession? And it's WHO. And they define what clinical engineering is. I'm not going to go there right now, but they've well defined that. They've increased the scope of what that definition is during COVID with increased responsibilities around all kinds of oxygen systems, around PPE, certainly digital health, as well as traditional medical device lifecycle management. But we need to have the minimum requirements around that. We have to have well-identified body of knowledge, which is both initial training and education, but ongoing training throughout career. We need to have clear body of practice. You know, where do we put most of our efforts? That's Jim said, about 80% of that body practice is the same around the world, around those topics I mentioned in those systems, but about 20% of it can be variable in the different part of the world that you may be in. So that's where this task force that he mentioned is working on that topic of what are the differences around the world. And I didn't finish the thought about clinical engineering practitioners. WHO defined them as, you know, clinical engineers in management roles, as health technology managers in management roles, maybe not with exactly the same educational requirements, biomedical equipment technicians. All of those are WHO's definition of clinical engineering practitioners. You know, we're being hosted by AAMI that's done a great job in this country of defining biomedical equipment technician roles and competencies and body of practice, body of knowledge. They've done a great job around health technology managers, but we haven't done a great job around the world around defining for clinical engineers who are manage health technologies and digital health, or they are biomedical engineers that manage at the point of care for patients. So these are some of the things we're wrestling with. Other comments from you, Yadi?
I have a little bit different view of what you're expressing. I am not dependent on WHO definition because we're not practicing global profession. We're mostly practicing national profession. So I would love to see that nations are adopting WHO definition, but it's the nation definition that I would be submitting to you that professional credentialing should comply with. I, together with Jim Weir and Professor William Hyman, rest in peace, that last year was inducted into the American College of Clinical Engineering Hall of Fame, went to China and developed credentialing program for clinical engineers in China. We run it now for 12 years, extremely successful, but it was conditioned. We told the Chinese, we need to understand that this program will be in compliance with national definition of roles in healthcare. Otherwise, we have no interest in that. So that's how the program developed. And I think
So you're saying real energy is going to come from the country itself about their definitions. They care about what we think globally, but at the end of the day, it's coming from them. Back to you.
exactly. So what I'm suggesting is that we will put energy to bring nation up to the level of compliance with professional credentialing in whatever they define to be the role. But there must be a program of saying, if you say this is the color red, that's fine. Might be in another country, the color is orange, but you must have a program to show that you validate the color.
So our listeners are understanding why this is not something we've solved immediately, and it's a bit complex, but we're so dedicated to wanting to solve this challenge.
No question. We have to. We have no choice. We're practicing in a sector that everybody else is credentialed. The physicians, the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the pathologist, the nurses, the perfusionist, everybody around us is credentialed. And why we wouldn't take that challenge.
So we've got a small group, this task force that Jim talked about. We're looking at these various models around the world. You heard Yadin talk a little bit about the model in China. There's a model in North America that's been going for a long time. He used the words HTCC, Health Technology Certification Commission, still ongoing. AAMI is a part of it. CED is a part of it. GCEA will be a part of it. So that's one model. He mentioned the Japanese model where they're super users and they're funded by the government because they operate the high-tech equipment. He talked about a model in India where they certified across 5 categories. I won't revisit them now, but that served them very well during these past 2 years of COVID. And there's a model where there's no program whatsoever, and a couple others. So we're using those as a benchmark to try to develop, not a one size fits all, but a program that, can be well accepted around the world. And because the world's getting to be a smaller place where people could perhaps move between countries and be recognized as having the right level of competencies. Any closing comments, Yadin?
Yes, I wonder, I don't know if Rosanna has a.
She had some comments. We can certainly entertain your input. Come on up, Rosanna.
Hand raise, or it was or anybody?
No, she's got a lot of wisdom to share from Latin America, and we want to hear it.
Anybody online? If they
Yeah, we'll look to.
There's a Q&A that popped up.
Okay, and Fred was singing with us from Ecuador, and he's got a very good voice, and he probably dancing the tango as well. And Michael asked for some suggestions, and I gave some, but go ahead.
For what?
No, you were raising your hand earlier,
Mm,
and we didn't know if you
Yeah.
if you had a comment you wanted to share.
yeah. Just few words to congratulate to all the people, all the colleagues and students who were connected in this fabulous second day. Contest, high quality, best practices, discussion, all was absolutely high quality, and we are very proud. Congratulations, Tom Jott. Congratulations, Yadim David and Kali Roy and Luis Fernandez, all these efforts, Elliot Sloan, and all the people on board. We are making that the best. We are doing really better now. This ceremony is very important. It touched us a lot because the awards are a way not to select ones, but to share with the ones what we are doing for the best with the knowledge.
Rosanna, I have a question for you, and thank you for what your kind words. So you're a professor in Peru, but you're also have a great perspective across the whole region of the Americas. What do you see certification doing when we get our answers together? What do you see it doing for the clinical engineering practitioners in Latin America?
In these last 2 years, certification is not just a key, an essential request, is now a must. We are all, we agree that this is the next step. We also agree that it's not going to happen automatically. We need guidance, we need to be organized, we need a system. But now it's another step for GCA and CEHTMC. The framework is almost ready, and we are ready, Tom.
And we talk about the Americas, AMRO, as WHO calls it, as our leading light because of our work with their regional office of the Americas, PAHO, and even that program yesterday, co-sponsored by PAHO, GCEA, and CED. So we have, if we can fix it in the Americas, we may be able to help fix it around the world.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you, Rosanna.
Let's go for it.
Thank you.
So Jim, again, happy birthday. Thank you very much. I remember that when I started to practice clinical engineering, I was waiting on your newsletter to come out, because on the last page, you always have questions. And maybe that was the starting of the question bank for the certification program one day, many, many years later. So thank you very much. Excellent keynote speech, very good subject, professional credentialing, and we'll follow up with the program tomorrow. Long day, great. We are ready for dinner here in Washington, DC, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night, everybody. We were very generous. We gave you 3 extra minutes. Good night.